I got home around 6:30. The house was unusually quiet. Nick and Chris were at practice, basketball and wrestling, respectively, so I expected the usual. Cold takeout on the counter, a note from Steph about leftovers, and the dog looking at me like I was the second choice for food and affection. But the moment I stepped inside, something was off. First, the smell hit me. Not the usual microwave burrito or garlic pizza odor. This was lamb, not just lamb. Braised lamb shank, maybe ragu with rosemary and thyme. Rich, deep, like something out of a Michelin-starred kitchen. And I'd know. I used to spend my weekends chasing the perfect slow-cooked stew before spreadsheets hijacked my life. Then I saw the table. Candles. Real ones. Not the fake LED ones we used during the blackout last winter. A white tablecloth I swear we hadn't used since our 10th anniversary. Napkins folded like swans. Plates I forgot we even owned. And in the center, a bottle of Kleine Salza Shiraz. Now here's the thing. Stephanie doesn't drink red. She says it tastes like regret and headaches. And I've never seen her buy South African wine in her life. But I love that stuff. I used to stash bottles behind the flower so the kids wouldn't sneak it for parties. My first thought wasn't suspicion. Honestly, I was flattered. I figured maybe she got a promotion or had one of those you deserve something nice epiphanies after a stressful week. Then she walked in, black dress, the one with the slit up the side, the one she wore on our last real date night. What, 2 years ago? Hair done, makeup subtle but killer. Lipstick I couldn't name, but I knew the effect. Deadly. Hey, she said, flashing that tight smile women use when something's cooking. And it ain't just the lamb. Did I forget a birthday? Anniversary? National Apologize to Your Husband Day? She chuckled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just thought we could do something different. We sat. I poured the wine. She barely touched hers. I took a bite of the lamb. It was ridiculously good. Melt in your mouth good. The kind of good that makes you suspicious. You're nervous, I said mid-chew. No, I'm not. You are. You're eating like someone with a bomb under the table. She poked at her food. You're not pregnant, are you? I asked, trying to lighten the mood. Because if that's the case, I'm gonna need a second glass of this wine. That forced a laugh out of her, but it was brittle. She set her fork down. Her hands were shaking. I need to talk to you, she said. Can we go to the living room? Now, when a woman dresses up, cooks your favorite dish, and then says, "Can we talk in the living room?" you brace yourself. We sat on the couch. I noticed she had folded a napkin in her hand like a stress toy. She took a breath. What if I asked you how you'd feel about me going on a date? I blinked. A date with who? Not who, just in theory. No. You said a date, not a theory. Those are different ballparks, Steph. She looked down. His name is Kevin. He's a client. We've just been talking. He's very open-minded and I'm gonna stop you right there, I said. If this is some let's open the marriage talk, I'm gonna need something stronger than Shiraz. She didn't say anything. I stood up. Look, I work in corporate security, remember? I see a lot of things. Internal affairs, quiet firings, NDA-covered affairs. But this feels like one of those bad ideas that turns into a Dateline episode. I'm not saying I've done anything, she said quickly. I haven't. I swear. It's just, he made me feel something. Not in a cheating way. Just alive. Oh well. By all means, I said. If Kevin the car whisperer makes you feel alive, maybe you should ask him to fix the dishwasher while he's at it. Alex, please. No. You know what? If you're asking me for permission to date someone else, let's skip that step. We can just talk divorce. That shut her up. There was silence for a full minute. Then 2. I don't want a divorce, she said finally. I wanted to know how you'd react. Well, now you know, I said. Welcome to the show. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. Went out to the garage, opened the mini fridge, cracked open a cheap beer, sat next to the dusty grill I hadn't used in months, and I thought, what the hell just happened? 3 days. That's how long we didn't speak. Not a word. Just polite grunts over coffee, nods when passing in the hallway. We were two ghosts haunting the same house, pretending the kitchen wasn't the scene of a murder. Something had died there. Trust, maybe. Or patience. On the fourth day, I came home to find Stephanie in the garage, not looking for me, digging through boxes like she was on some archaeological dig for meaning. She held up a crumpled paper. It was the recipe for the lamb ragu. "This was your mother's," she said almost softly. "No," I corrected. It was her handwriting. The recipe was mine. I tweaked it until she admitted mine was better. She tried to smile. It didn't hold. I wanted to tell her I wasn't angry anymore. But that wasn't true. I was angry in a different way. Not the yelling, plate-smashing kind, the silent kind. The kind where you take note of every moment and log it like a forensic accountant. That night I checked her phone. Not proud of it. But I'd done worse things in my line of work. There were no texts from Kevin, no late-night emojis, no blurry, shirtless photos, just calendar invites, a few lunch meetings, one of them at the Blue Jackal, a steakhouse downtown known for two things: $60 ribeyes and $200 bills you don't see coming. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I skipped work. I went to the dealership and got the oil changed, then spent an hour detailing the inside. Just something to focus on. When I got back, I found an envelope in the mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a folded letter. Thick, expensive stationery, watermarked. Smelled like cologne and smugness. "Alex, I realize how unconventional this is, but I wanted to extend an invitation. I'll be attending the Monterey Retro Auto Expo in California next month, fully covered. Accommodations at the Westlake Ocean View. Thought it might give you and Stephanie some breathing room. Consider it a gentleman's agreement. Kevin Barlow." There was a brochure clipped to it, the kind printed on glossy paper with metallic ink. On the cover was a fully restored 1969 Shelby GT 500, painted jet black, with silver trim that shimmered like snakeskin, my dream car. I turned the page and nearly choked. Inside were two laminated VIP tickets, labeled Platinum Tier, with lounge access, complimentary flights, and private showroom access. I held the letter like it was radioactive. I wanted to laugh. I really did. This guy, this shark in loafers, thought I could be bought off with muscle cars and Marriott points. I walked straight into the living room and handed Stephanie the letter. "What is this?" I asked. She read it. Her face turned pale, then red. "I didn't know he'd send this. I swear." "You didn't know?" I snapped. "So we're at the stage where mystery packages from your maybe lover show up in our mailbox and your defense is ignorance?" "I didn't ask for this. But you gave him enough space to think it was okay. That's worse." I walked out. To the fire pit in the backyard. The kids were still at school. The house was quiet. Perfect moment for a bit of dramatic flair. I set the letter on the logs, poured a splash of lighter fluid. Then I lit a match. That envelope went up like it owed me money. Stephanie stood at the sliding door, arms crossed. Her silhouette in the glass looked like it belonged to a stranger. "You're being ridiculous," she finally said. "No," I replied, watching the flames chew through the word gentleman. "I'm being precise. That night, I installed a Wi-Fi camera above the front door. Discreet, motion-triggered, real-time notifications to my phone. If Kevin Barlow thought he could waltz into my house again, I wanted evidence, HD, time-stamped, and ready to forward to anyone with a badge. I told the boys the new rule. If I ever text the code word, storm window, you drop everything, come. Home through the back and wait upstairs. No questions, just do it." Nick raised an eyebrow. "Is this about Mom?" Chris, being younger but sharper, said, "It's about that guy, isn't it?" "Just trust me," I said. "I'll explain when it's over." Because it wasn't over. 3 days later, I came home to a scene I now recognized with clinical precision. Candlelight dinner, that same damn dress, lamb again, bottle of Kleine Zalza uncorked, but this time, there were 3 place settings, 3 glasses, 3 forks, 3 napkins. Stephanie didn't say anything when I walked in. She looked at me startled, not guilty, just caught off guard, like a magician whose trick failed mid-performance. "Thought it might be nice," she mumbled. "For who?" Silence. I walked upstairs, My sons were already in position. Nick had an aluminum bat just in case. I told him to put it down. "We're not going full Home Alone tonight," I said. "Let's just see how this plays out." At exactly 7:04 p.m., the doorbell rang. My phone lit up. Kevin Barlow, standing on the porch, wearing a suede jacket, white button-up shirt, and that smug country club smile. In his hand, a velvet bag. God knows what was in it. And a wooden box, the kind expensive whiskey comes in. I opened the door. Left the chain on. "Evening, Alex," he said, with the tone of a man who just beat you at golf and wants you to know it. "You've got 10 seconds to leave. No need for dramatics," he said, lifting the velvet pouch. "Thought you might enjoy a bottle of Yamazaki 18. Very rare, very smooth." I smiled. "Tell you what," I said. "You drink half of it, and then try walking back to your car." His grin faltered. Then he leaned forward, too close for comfort. "You're not being reasonable, Alex. I'm not being arrested either," I said, pulling out my phone. "Which is what happens if you don't walk away right now." Stephanie appeared behind me. She gasped. Kevin looked at her, then me, then back at her. "I see," he muttered. "So this is how it ends." "No," I replied. "This is how it starts." And I slammed the door. Thursday, same week. I came home early. No meetings, no errands. Just a hunch. One of those low-frequency vibrations you feel in your gut when something's not right. The kind of feeling I usually trusted when analyzing security breaches. Tonight, I was using it to analyze the woman I married. I parked 2 houses down, walked the rest of the way. Quiet, no sign of visitors. But when I reached our driveway, I caught a glimpse through the front window, flickering candlelight again. "Here we go." I texted the boys the signal, "Storm window." Then I walked inside casually like it was any other night. And there it was. The trifecta. The damn lamb again. Braised so well I could smell it from the hallway. Same white tablecloth, same dress, same bottle of wine. Kleine Salsa, open and breathing like it had been waiting for me. But now it was almost theatrical. As if she were trying to recreate the original scene beat for beat, hoping the ending would be different this time. Except this time, she forgot one thing. The third place setting. Again. 3 glasses, 3 chairs, and a folded cloth napkin across. The middle seat like it was waiting for royalty. "Expecting someone?" I asked, pulling my tie loose. She froze. "I just thought maybe we could talk, all of us." "By all, you mean me and Kevin." Silence. The doorbell rang, like clockwork. I walked to the door, phone already in hand, camera already rolling. When I opened it, I didn't even bother with the chain this time. Kevin Barlow stood there, again, in that smug suede jacket, but this time holding something new, a silver tin box monogrammed. Probably cigars or bribes. The man always brought props. Behind me, Stephanie hovered in the kitchen doorway, pale as flour. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Kevin said, smiling like a man who's never been punched in the mouth and still thinks it won't ever happen. "Wrong address," I said, "and wrong family." Then I stepped aside slightly, just enough for him to see what I wanted him to see. Nick and Chris, my sons, stood at the top of the stairs. Arms crossed, Chris held a lacrosse stick like it was an extension of his soul. Nick? He didn't need a weapon. His face said enough. "This is your audience, Kevin," I said. "So choose your next move like you're on national television." For a second, I thought he'd turn around. Instead, he took one smug step forward and said the dumbest thing I've ever heard come out of a grown man's mouth. I think the kids should hear another perspective. They deserve honesty. Nick was halfway down the stairs before I could stop him. I held out an arm. "I got it." I stepped out onto the porch, closed the door behind me. "You want honesty?" I said. "Here's mine. You think you're some charming disruptor, shaking up our little suburban narrative. But really? You're a cliché with a car collection. A walking TED Talk on midlife delusion." His face twitched. I could see the gears grinding behind that $1 million dental work. "I offered peace, Alex." "You offered a transaction," I said. "One where you get my wife, I get your whiskey, and nobody gets dignity." He tried to push past me. "Big mistake." That's when Chris, God bless that kid, opened the side door and yelled, "Dad!" Kevin turned instinctively. just in time for Nick to come through the front like a linebacker and shoulder check him back onto the porch. Not a punch, just a firm, disciplined warning. Kevin stumbled, dropped the tin box, the cigars or whatever. It was clattered across the concrete. That's when the cruiser pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. One of them, Officer Maddox, was a neighbor. Knew us. Knew the boys. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Kevin picking himself off the ground like he'd slipped on banana peel. I held up my phone. "I've got the whole thing on video." He came, uninvited, tried to force entry. Maddox didn't even need to look at the footage. He glanced at Kevin, then at me. "You want to press charges?" I looked at my sons, at Stephanie, at the remains of the dinner that wasn't. "No," I said. "Just make sure he understands this address is permanently off limits." Kevin muttered something about misunderstandings and future regrets, but the officers escorted him to his car. I didn't watch him leave. I walked back inside. Stephanie stood by the dining room table, the dress suddenly looking like a costume that didn't fit anymore. "You invited him?" I asked. She nodded, barely. "I thought maybe if you heard him out." "No. Alex, I was scared. You shut down. You wouldn't talk. So your solution was dinner and guest stars?" I walked to the wine bottle, looked at it, then uncorked it, poured a glass. Swirled it like I was studying the wreckage of a decade. "You used to love me for being grounded. Now it's a problem." "No," she whispered. "I just didn't know how much I missed being wanted." I looked at her then, really looked, and saw something worse than betrayal. I saw confusion, regret, that deep, aching loneliness that builds in long marriages and becomes dangerous when left unchecked. "I'm not your enemy," I said, finishing the glass, "but I'm not your doormat either." We slept in separate rooms that night. Next day, I made a call to a contractor, had the basement converted into a studio apartment, kitchenette, separate entrance, told Stephanie she could have it. No fight. No screaming. Just a deal. "You stay there until we figure out what this is. You talk to him again, even once, and we're done. No discussion, no lawyers, just done." And she agreed. What followed was 3 months of the quietest war in history. Family, therapy, sobbing sessions, awkward silences, but also small things. Me fixing her broken cabinet door one afternoon without being asked. Her making my favorite sandwich without saying a word. Then one day during a session, she dropped it. "I think I'm pregnant." I blinked. "With his—" "No," she said before I could finish. "With yours." She looked terrified, but also relieved, like it gave her a reason to fight. Fast forward to December. We had a girl, healthy, loud, with my chin and her mother's stubbornness. We named her Alexa. Yeah, that's right, named after me. I laughed when she suggested it and said, "You know the robot spies are gonna love that." But I kept the name, and I kept the empty bottle from that first strange dinner. It still sits on the top shelf in my study, not as a trophy, as a reminder that sometimes the closest you ever come to losing everything is exactly when you realize what it's really worth.